Okay, so in the last tutorial we talked about what the difference between Photoshop and Illustrator is, but today I'd like to introduce you to the most important versatile tool in Illustrator. And I think getting a handle on this tool will help you just sort of get a feel for what Illustrator is like. So right now I have the Apple logo up because I'm planning on tracing it using the pen tool. And why I would choose this is because it just has a lot of nice curves and a couple of good strong angles here. Um, and I just think it's going to be the easiest thing to sort of show how it works. You can choose whatever you want. In fact, it would be great if you could follow along with this tutorial because I believe you're going to get a much better understanding by doing rather than just seeing me do stuff. So go ahead and find an image that you like, preferably a logo such as this. It's going to be nice and easy to trace this. So we're just going to do a little bit of setup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this picture that I have pasted into Illustrator. And I'm just going to drop the opacity to like 50 something. That's great. That's fine. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a new layer. And I'm going to drag this new layer underneath the layer that the apple is on. And then I'm just going to lock the layer by pressing this square right next to the eye icon. And that means the layer is locked. So now, working on the second layer, I am going to just go ahead and select the pen tool. Now, how this works is it works on, I believe they're called Bezier curves. So, what that means is the angle of the handle and where that is positioned will dictate the curve that you end up getting. So if we take a look at this, you can see if you kind of trace where this handle is to here, you will start to get this curve, and then this one to here will kind of give you this curve, and just the sum of those two is what you end up getting. Here, let me make this a little bit more clear and give you a visual sample of what I'm talking about. So this, I'm going to paste this in here. As you can see, it is very large, so I'm just going to hide this so that we can see it a little bit better. And I'm going to take just the line tool here to here, here to here. Okay, well that did not work out because I don't have any stroke. So this little panel right here is going to tell you what the difference between your fill and your stroke is. A line tool only has stroke, so we're just going to select one at random. So those are impossible to see. There we go. So how this works, it's just sort of a sum between how these handles interact with the next point. So there's a lot of very complicated math things on here, and again, if that's something you're interested in and you think it will help you understand it a little bit better, that is something that you should do some more research on. But for our intents and purposes, the easiest way to figure out how these actually work in practice is going to be by just doing it yourself. So I'm going to just show you how I would go about tracing this. Now, your main goal with using the pen tool is to try to use as few points as possible and just rely on the curve. This is going to give you a nice and smooth curve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start kind of here in the middle, and I'm going to hold shift. Now what shift does is it keeps my handle snapped to either a 90-degree angle, either horizontal or vertical, or any 45-degree angle between those. So I'm going to just drag it out to there, and then you can see my my pen tool here is dragging out this line. That's going to show you where your next one is. So I'm going to click kind of at this apex here and do the same thing and just drag the opposite way. And as you can see, that starts to trace that line. And then using space to pan down, I'm going to go, say, let's zoom out a little bit so we can see it a little bit better. Again, at the apex, I think that'll be a good one. And we're going to pull it out to here. Now, the nice thing about these lines is they don't have to be perfect right out of the gate. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just sort of estimating where I think all of these points are going to be. Since it's your first time trying it, you don't have to aim for each apex. That might not be the best way for you to do it, but that tends to be how I go about tracing this sort of thing, because again, the fewer points that you use, the smoother your line is going to be. So you're going to come down to this apex and just hold shift and pull it out. To this one, hold shift, pull it out. This one, same deal. space to go out. Now here we have something different. I'm going to hit this point and just pull it out. But you'll see that my line is going to end up curving as I go to this next one, and that's not what exactly we want. However, it's much easier to fix that after the fact than it is to do that right now. So I'm going to ignore it and we can come back and fix it. That's the really nice thing about Illustrator is you can basically fix whatever you want. And again, just hitting all the apexes, pull that out so even, perfect. So there are a few lines up here, a few tools, up here that are important for you to know. So this black arrow, that is your selection tool. That selects the entire object that you've just made. Your direct selection tool, the white arrow, will only select points and allow you to manipulate them as such. The run underneath that is your pen tool, and that is what we just used. We will be getting to the anchor point tool here shortly. Right here, we've got this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down my pen tool and get the anchor point tool. I'm going to find this anchor point right here, and that's going to make it sharp. I'm going to do the same thing to this one. This is just going to delete our handles and make it incredibly sharp. Great. Now, if I don't really like how this curvature is, which I don't, I can actually grab that line and just pull it out. Now, that's going to do some funky stuff to our handles, but again, I'm just going to snap it to the vertical and take this bad boy right here by clicking the anchor itself, and the handle over here, hold shift, snap it to the horizontal. Now that is going to give us pretty much what we want, but not quite, so I'm going to actually do that a little bit differently and put it at an angle. Just what you're aiming for here is just following this line. And I recommend taking some time to get familiar with how these feel, because me showing it to you is not going to do that for you. It's going to have to come from you messing with it. So I recommend just grabbing the Apple logo just because it's super nice to work with. It's got some nice curves and that sharp line that you can mess with. But any other logo that you want, or any vector graphic, or really anything, you could trace a photo if you wanted to. It's just going to be a little bit harder to wrap your head around. So as you can see, because our reference image up there is transparent, we can kind of see what we're doing. Now, if this is not quite visible enough for you, you can always hit this over here and just invert your line and your stroke, or your fill and your stroke. So your stroke being what is tracing on the path itself, and the fill being what color is on the inside. And unlike Photoshop, you don't have to have, or like MS Paint, you don't have to have a completely filled thing. So say if we just drag out a random shape, you'll see that it just makes a straight line from point A to point B and puts the fill in there. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. We don't need it. And on this one, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make two kind of sloppy anchor points to show you exactly how I would go about just fixing things. So we're going to take our direct selection tool and just move that to there. Once again, we're going to anchor point this bad boy. So what that's going to do is just sort of break the connection between the two handles and make it a sharp point. And I'm just going to grab this and pull it out, and then do the same to this. Maybe. Or not. So as you can see, it wants to drag it out differently because there's no curvature to it. So how we have to do that is I'm going to hit the anchor point tool again. Using the anchor point tool, we can actually turn it into a curve. So how this anchor point tool works is it basically just allows you to treat corners like curves and curves like corners and kind of move in between them. But as you can see, us messing with it like that has broken this connection between these two handles. So now they can be independent of each other and let us get these really nice sharp curves. And say we didn't like the sharpness of it. We can take our tools, and with the direct selection, we can grab these little white handles on the inside corner, And we can drag that in and that will curve it. Curve it almost down to a circle, but that works on any sharp point. And kind of just gives it a nice little roundness to it. So we can hide our reference image, and you can see I've just made the Apple logo, but with a little bit of a rounded leaf. So please, please, please mess around with this on your own. It is the sort of thing that's hard to explain, but once you get a sense of it, it becomes a little bit more intuitive. Again, you can go ahead and research Bezier curves if you feel like understanding the math behind them is going to help you out. If not, I would recommend just messing with it and figuring it out on your own.